Good evening, sir.
All right, great. Uh, okay. So looks like uh, we can start the session now. We can get started with whatever we have planned for today. So whatever application that we built in the last session, we'll be going ahead with that, and we'll use view router, and we'll try to create a similar kind of application so that you can gain enough familiarity with the view router and how it can be used in order to create single pages applications. Okay. Uh, so with that, I would like to hand it over to Narendra. He'll take the session forward from here.
Thanks, Abhishek. Am I audible?
Yeah, yes, Narendra, you are.
Yes, sir.
So I'll share my screen. Last time there was the issue with the sound. So if that persists, please let me know. So is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
So I have already created a directory, and inside the directory I'll start the session with the demonstration how the view router works and like how you can use the view router. What is view router? So it's kind of like I will go through the features that view router provides, and then I will use those features in our application which we are building from the last to last session. So I'll go to the index.html, and we will do all those things which we have been doing in all the sessions. So first thing we do, we create a div with the ID app. And then I will include my JavaScript file in this file. And .js type it. And along with that, I'll also include the CDN for the view. So I have already written the CDN here. So I'll copy these two CDN. One corresponds to the view and the second corresponds to the router. The first one is for the view and the second one is for the view router. So I'll go to the app.js and try to create a view instance and start processing. The index.html, and I'll create a data here. Try to create it inside our index.html. Let's run this application. So you can see Narendra in the browser. So the configuration has been done. Our app.js file has been attached with the index.html successfully. Now I will start with the how you create a view router. So what the view router is, it provides you a feature where you can create multiple routes, and based on those routes you can like display the different components. Once I will create those routes and show you the demo, you will understand. So for now, you just understand that using the view router, you can create multiple routes, and inside those routes, you can display the multiple the different components. So I'll create a variable route, and it will be an array, and inside this array, I will create multiple. I'll create multiple routes. So I will provide the configuration for the routes. The first thing you need to like provide is path. What it says that what is the path by which you can like visit this route. Let's say I'll call it slash. It's similar to the route which we use in the Flask. So here you are like clearly specifying, explicitly specifying that the path will be slash, and then let's say I'll give it a name. It's not mandatory, but still you should give a name. I'll call it home. Good practice. And you can target this route using the name also. I'll be talking about this more, but the name option provides you the different way to target this route. So before that, I will create some components. So I'll go here and components, make a directory components, and inside this directory, I will create some components. Call it .js, and I'll create one more component, call it profile.js. So inside the component, now I will define the options object of this component. And I will template. And inside the profile, I would say template. And wrap this around a div element, because you always, it's mandatory to use a root element. If you will not use a root element, I mean, this will break. So you have two components which we are going to use to display contents from the different routes. So I will create two routes. The first route will display the component home.js, and the second route will display the component profile.js. So go to the app.js now. Component will provide the component option, and here I will give the So what happens is like you have created what you are doing, you are creating an array of routes. So the first option says that the path which you can use to access that route is slash means the home page. I mean the like when you hit the base URL, you will be directed to this path slash, and the name of this route will be home, and the component which we will use to display the template is the home. That means the template of the home component will be displayed when user will visit this path slash. And I will create one more route, and the configurations I will write. I will first specify the path using which you can access the access this route will be, let's say I'll call it profile, and then I'll keep the name same profile, and the component which is used to display the content on that route will be the profile, the, the profile component which we made here. Component will be so in our application we have two routes. The first one is slash and the second one is slash profile. So using this routes array, we need to create a router object. So I will call that object router. Const router router like this, router, and inside that view router I will pass this route. And then I will pass this router which we have created, the router instance, inside our main application instance, the view instance. So the steps which I have followed, I have created an array of the routes. So in it, for each element in the array is the configuration of a route, where the path property specifies the path with using which you can like visit that route, and the name of that route you can use the name to target that route also. You can use path or name for that route, and the component which will be used to display the content for that route. And then I have created a view router instance using this routes option. You can like keep all this. You can keep this array inside this router instance, router object also. And you need to pass this router which you have created, the router object, inside your main inside your view instance. So what it does, the router, it will, I mean, if you will use the router inside the view object, it will be this router, the router instance will be accessible to all the components. This is why you pass this router inside our application. I mean, inside our view object. So now, how will we access all these routes? So I'll go to the index.html, and now two components which the view router provides. The two important, I would say, the very important components which view router provides is the router view and the router links. So I will start with the router view. Router view. So let's go to this application. And you can see that by default, it says this is a home page. This is the home page. And if I will go to the profile, it will say this is a profile page. So this is the base URL. And let me do one thing. I'll just use this one. This, if you will not use anything, it will display the home page, because the slash path takes the, uses the home component. If you go here, okay, if you go here in the routes configuration, so if you see the slash corresponds to the home component. That's why if we are not passing anything, it simply shows the home component for the slash. And if I will write profile, it will show that this is the profile page. And the second important component which the view provides is the view links. Router links. The router link, I will. So you need to pass the prop to, and this prop will specify. This prop will like direct the router to take the route. Like if I'll write only slash, I'll write the whole code and then demonstrate. And then I'll create one more router link. And I'll call it profile. And will direct to. Now, if I go here, you can see there are two links appearing here. These two links are coming because of this router links. So you have created two router links. That's why you have two links here. So if you click on the home, it will say this is home page, and if you click on the profile, it will say profile page. So whatever the path you will provide here inside in this two prop, whatever the path you will provide in the two path in the two prop, it will direct you to that path. That path means the component. It will display the component, the template of the component, which corresponds to that path. So if you look at this router link, this is home, and it is like directing to the slash path. So the slash path here, the component corresponding to the slash path is home component. That's why the template says this is a home page. So if you click on this, it will say this is the home page. And if you go to the profile, it will say this is the profile page. And if you go to the profile.js, you can see the template here. So this is the basic like structure of the view router, the most basic structure of the view router. Is there any question till now?
Will you show that HTML page?
Which one? Index.html.
Yeah. Yes, sir. You used the brackets there, no? In router dash link 2 equal to, there was a curly bracket.
Yeah. Curly bracket.
Using name equal to, you use that. That was visible before.
Okay. That's different. That is the different application.
Okay.
I opened that application to like copy these two CDNs.
Okay. So we can show in that way as well, no?
Yeah. We can access the route using that name also, as I said.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, and the
Okay.
components will be stored inside the router view. The reason
Okay.
you are writing router view is because you want to show the component which is related to that route here. I mean, wherever you want to show. That
Yes, sir.
component, you write the router view there. The router will inject the component inside the router view. So the router view is used to inject the component, and router link is used to direct the user to some path. And which path it is going to direct is decided by the two property. Okay, I guess it's fine for everybody. Okay, so this is not the only way you can direct the user to some path. I mean, you can use the name of that route to direct the user to that path. So we'll write name and then give the name of that route. Let's say it was the home. Okay, so what you need to do if you are using the object notation, here what you are doing, you are passing the path directly. But if you are if you are passing the information about the right route to which you want the user to direct, you need to bind the two property with the object. So you create an object with the name home and then bind it to the two props. So if I go here now, so if I go to profile page and then I'll go to the home page, then it works similar. So you can see there are two ways you can pass the path. I mean, it's kind of passing the path, but using the name, not the path of the path property which we used inside these routes. But inside the routes array, we are like creating the configurations for the route. So we are not using the path configuration. I mean path property of the configuration. We are using the name property of the configuration. So okay. So I'll change this also. So now what I will do, but ideally what would you want? You would like to pass some information to the route. Like if you see the flask, so what happens is like when you are like defining the route, when you are defining the path of the route, you pass some variables with the route, which we call the path parameters. So that kind of property you also achieve in the view. So if you go to the app.js and So what you have to do, you just have to like write the ID, but you need to like write the colon here, the first colon and then ID. This represents that this ID is dynamic.
So this ID and HTML ID is equal to app, both are different.
ID.
In HTML page, we have written div
Okay,
ID
no,
is
no,
equal
that
to
is
app,
different thing.
and this one is different.
Yeah, it's you are passing some data to the route.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this
Yeah.
this is dynamic.
Getting sir. Yeah.
That ID, like that is some identification of that HTML element. But this has nothing to do with the identification. It's just a variable. You can call it profile ID also, but that will be a long name. So how would you pass that information from the index.html or wherever the router link is? So I'll not use the syntax here. I'll just pass 2 and file/1. So what I'm doing now, the way you have defined your the second route, the profile route, you are passing a dynamic ID to this route. So when you are directing to this path, what you need to do, you need to pass that ID also. And the way you access that data is by using this route, this dot route. This is the profile page of this dot. So what I said initially, that once you pass that router to the options object of your view when you are initializing your view object. So what I'm talking about. So when you are passing this router to the view to initialize the view instance, what you are doing, you are like informing all the components. Now the $sign router and $sign route is available to all the components. So this dot route is available to this component, and now it has a params. So if you are passing the path parameter, so that parameters, the whatever the data you have sent through that path parameters is available inside the params object. So from that params object, you are accessing the ID. So now if I will go here, and if I will go to the ID, you can see that this is the profile page of 1. And if I will change it from 1 to 2, you will see that this is the profile page of 2. So now what you are doing here, you are passing some data with the route.
Sir, will you please repeat that part? Hello, sir.
Yeah. Am I audible?
This dot $root params dot ID. Can you repeat that part in the profile?
Okay, this one.
Yeah.
So whatever the data you will pass to the route as a path parameter will be available in this object. This dot $route dot params.
Sir,
So,
from here you are saying from browser, like you just shown in that way, or that point is not clear.
Okay, if you go here, so what you are doing, you are passing 1 here.
Yes, sir.
So if you will pass here 5, that means you are passing 5. If you go to the app.js, and the way you have defined this route, so you have /profile and then /ID, and this ID is dynamic.
Okay.
So you can pass anything to this ID. So from the index.html, you are passing 5, the value 5 of that ID. Okay, and then you are accessing that data which you pass, like you passed 5 here to this component, because this component is responsible to display display the profile, because we have inside in the this route configuration we have written the component profile. That is this component is like responsible to display the like display the data for this route. So you are passing this ID to this component, and this component and this data can be accessed using this route.params that will be stored inside this object. This object is like provided by the view router.
Okay. In earlier case, we have used props to pass component from parent to the child. Here, this is directly going to do that.
But we are not passing props here.
Yes, sir. Yes.
We are passing the data through the URL.
Yes, sir. And sir, in app.js, that colon is a part of the syntax, no? Colon ID.
Colon you have to write. I mean, it's not necessary that you write ID here. You write name here, and whatever you will pass from here. Let's say I will pass Narendra, and if I will go here and write name, I will go
strings.
So you can see that this is profile page of Narendra.
Yes, sir. Clear. Got it.
Okay. So let's say you want to, I mean, perform this action using this this object notation. You are directly writing the path here, but let's say you want to do this operation using the object notation, the way we did for the first link. So all you have to do name to profile and then pass the params ID name I want to pass a test. Okay. And say this is the home page, and if I go to the profile page, this is the profile page of Ajit. So if you, the reason why I am showing this, because there are, I mean, it's not necessary that you like bind the path to the router link only. I mean, you can create any kind of HTML element, and then you can use method to direct the user to that path. I'll be explaining that. But for now, we are using router link to direct the user to some path. And these are the two ways you can do, I mean, you can achieve this.
So in Ajit, we have given single quotes. If I'm passing ID, I will not be giving those quotes, no?
Yeah, even no. If you like you are saying as a integer, you'll pass it as integer. So whatever the data type you pass, it will be converted into a string.
Okay. Fine. Got it.
So now let's say inside the profile.js, we are now accessing this name using this, this object, this .route.params. But the problem with this syntax is this is tightly coupled with the router. Like if you want to use this component without the router, this will not be accessible. So it will throw an error or it will display nothing. So there is one more way to like access this data. It's like you can pass the path parameter as a props. I will do the name string. So and I will not use this .route.params, but I will use the name here. So you need to inform the router that you want to pass this dynamic data to the component using a route. Using the props. So the way you inform the router is like passing. So let's say I'm trying to like trying to run this code, and then I can see that this is the profile page of, and it displays nothing. Even we have passed Ajit, it doesn't say the Ajit here. But if I will change here profile, and I will just write props equal to true. This configuration, the props equal to true configuration says that, so whatever this data, the value of the data, the data will be passed to the component using props. Did you guys understand? It doesn't show. Props equal to. If I go to the profile and pass the name here, .j index.html, we're passing Ajit here. So it's correct. Doesn't show any errors. So we'll discuss this case in later session. I don't know what went wrong. Then profile params. Yes, props. .js.
Even props we pass using square bracket, no? That is as an array.
No, this one you can use this syntax also. You can pass it as an object also.
Okay, sir.
It's not showing an error, so I will try to resolve it offline. It was working earlier. So don't worry. For now, let's access that parameter using the method provided by the by the view router, like this dot routes, this dot route dot. Maybe I have made some mistake. No worries. I'll remove this props is equal to true. So maybe I'll clarify it after this course. So now you know how to pass the data from using, I mean, inside the URL using the path parameter. And there is one more way to pass the data to the component is like query parameter. The params is used for the path parameters, and you pass the query for the query parameter. Query, and let's call it state. Here, and let's see what happens if I will go to the profile now. You can see that there's some one query parameter is appearing here, and you can access this query parameter using similar kind of and dot route query dot state. So you can see that you have passed some more data using this state parameter. So if I change from UP to MP, you can see that it displays the MP. So there are two ways. I have shown you the two ways using which you can pass the data to the component through the URL. The first one is path parameter, which you access using this dot route dot params and the key name. And second is query parameter, and you access that parameter using this dot route dot query and the key name. I hope it's clear. Is it clear?
Here in index.html, we are hard coding state as UP.
Yeah.
And in the browser, we changed from UP to MP. How
Yeah.
it got rendered?
Now, all this like content is based on this URL. So what we are doing here, we are defining a URL. Here inside the index.html, we are defining a URL. So based on this object, the router is creating a URL, and based on that URL, the data is being displayed. So if you will change the data of the URL, the content of this page will also change.
So it need not be hard coded in the HTML file. It will
No.
change as per the user input.
Yeah, if you will remove this also, if you go to this here, and for now let's remove this. Okay, we'll throw an error. Comment this, and if you will like access this URL, it will still show this is profile page of Ajit and he lives in MP. The router link is only used to like give a place from where the user can access that component. you see here, and this profile is gone, it's no more a link.
So if we terminate this session and again start, then it won't happen.
No, it will still happen. The only thing is you need to remember all this this URL. You need to remember this URL. Let me copy this. Okay. And if you go here and like I will remove this whole router link and I will stop this process and again start this process. And if I let me remove this one and then go here, and you can see the whole thing again. What I'm saying that has nothing to do what will be displayed on the screen. I mean everything has to do with this URL. That is the router link is a way, is a facility which is giving the user an interface using which the user can access that URL. I mean, based on this information, based on this information, this object, the router will create a URL, and based on that URL, what will be displayed? I mean, that is decided by this path.
Okay, sir.
And which component will be displayed is will be decided by the configuration which we have provided to the routes.
Here in app.js, for that path, this line number 6, we are writing profile/name. Regarding that query part, nothing is expected here. Are we not supposed to modify it for that query also?
Query? No, you don't need to write the query here.
Okay.
You only need to specify the pass parameter.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, it's the additional thing. You can pass some query parameter if you want.
Okay. Yeah.
And using this .route.query object, you can access the data which you have passed using the query parameter. So what next? So one thing I will show you. Let's say I am writing something here. So what do you expect? What will happen?
It's reactive. Let me show.
I'll make some
Taking
mistake
state
here.
as MP sub public
Okay,
something.
Let me remove this. Right here. So you can see nothing will be displayed because I made a mistake in the URL. There is no path matching this URL. If you go here, so after the name, there is, I mean, if you will try to match this URL with some path, there will be no matching because we have a path which match this part, but we don't have anything /name. So it will display nothing because it will not be able to find the matching path. Matching path means if the router will match the path, then it will like direct the component to component that show whatever you have to the browser. So we have no matching path. That's why it will show nothing. But it will show nothing only inside the router view. Because other than the router view, everything is pretty static. So the router view, only the router view part changes. So every time you visit some URL, it matches the path, and once it matches the path and there is a match, it will go to the component which is associated with that path and display the content inside this router view. And whatever you will write outside the router view will be static. That will be displayed no matter what. So only this router view part will change based on the path. So, I mean, then what should we do? So there is a way that what I will do, I will create a new component inside the component not found. Inside the components, I will create not found. JS. So not found.js. Inside it, export default and template I will write template. I'll give here slash give I will write content not found. This template will be used only when there is no match for the path. So what I said, that every URL you type inside the browser, it matches. If the router tries to match with the path, if it doesn't match, then it will show nothing inside the router view. So I want to use this component in that case, if nothing matches. So if you go to the app.js, then you can create one more configuration with the path star. Star means everything. Name. I will not found that right. Component I will say not found. And not found. So what will happen if nothing matches? This will match every path. So if nothing matches, it will show the content of the not found. So I mean, no matter whatever I will type here after that, as it will show content not found, because it could not match the path. We have 3 paths in our application: slash, profile, and name, and star. So it will go to the slash, it will not find any path. So it will go to the profile name, it will not find the path, and so it will go to the star. It will go to the star, and the star will match everything. So it will find the match, and then it will show the component, whatever written inside the template of the component. It compiles, I mean, the view compiles that component, the template of the component, and then mount it to the door. Is it clear? So okay, lives in, I am not passing any query parameter. That's why it shows profile page of Ajit and he lives in, because we have not passed any parameter. So technically the value of that state is undefined. So if you go to the profile, we'll say the profile page, because we have hard coded the state name as UP and the name of the user as Ajit. So now let's say you want to create, so let's say you have a profile page and you want to like create a button And as soon as the user clicks on update button, and as soon as the user clicks on that update button, you want to direct that user to some page. Let's call it update page. Update.js. Okay, inside this update.js, default, I will template. This is update page. But this time I don't want to use the router link. I want to use a button. For now, till now, we know that we can use router link to direct the user to some component in some sense. But let's say we don't want to use that router link. We want to use a button. So I will create a button. And I will try to like attach a handler with this button, which will handle the click event, and I will call it update. Okay, and the content which will be shown on the button is update. Okay, now what we need to do, we have what if you remember from the last session. So if you like attach a event handler with some component, some HTML element, and pass some function to it, you need to define that inside the method. So I will write the methods option and define update. Update. And what I will do. So this time I have no option. I have not the access of the router link. I want to like direct the user using. I mean, this is the programmatic direction, you can say. I want to direct the user to some component using a program. Dot router dot push. So this data router is available to every. This is also, I mean, this represents the router instance. This represents the router instance, and this router instance has a push method, which we use to push some path in the browser's history. What I mean that whatever you are doing with the router link, you can do it using. I mean, you can do it programmatically also. The method you want to use is the push method of this dot router instance of the router instance. This dot router also provides a lot of methods, but this is the method you want to use when you want to direct the user to some path. So this dot router dot push, and you can pass a path here, like okay, but you need to define it inside the app.js because you need to give the configuration of this route. So path I will call /update and the name I will call it update. Component I will use update component. So this is the configuration for this route. So we will be using the path slash update. The name of that route will be update. We can target this route using the name also, update name, and the component which is associated with this route is update. And now and I was using it inside the profile.js. What we are trying to say here, whenever some user clicks on this button, update button, run this update function, and the what update function does, it uses the push method to direct the user to the update path. So if let's say I will go to the profile, and if I click on the update, not found, slash update.
Narendra, you need to write the update endpoint before that wildcard.
Okay, it will match everything. Okay, was not the problem. The problem was inside the update, I have not given the root element. So if I will go to the now, if I go to here, this is the update page. It says this is the update page. But I don't think it's necessary. Right. Here you can write it here also. So this path will match everything, so it will show the not found. So you need to write it after all the paths. It will check for slash, then profile date, profile name, and update. If it finds nothing, it will. I mean, this star will wildcard will like match everything, every path. So what you would like to do here is when you are using this profile.js, it's not mandatory to use the path. You can target this using the object object. I mean, you can pass the name the way you are doing in the router link. Name. So it will work the same way. Okay, so let's say you want to pass the, I mean, the ID of the user, the to of which you want to update the profile. If you are going here, if you look at here, so this update is being redirected from this profile page. So you need to pass the data of that user of which this profile is. So you go to the app.js, and here what you do, you pass the ID. In the same way, you can pass this. I will perhaps ID. I should have called it name. inside the update app.js, profile.js. For now, I'll just remove this white back. I'll come back in a minute. Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're
Yes.
audible.
Okay. So you are passing the params name this dot route dot params dot name. Let me check. Remove this and write one. Then update page. Okay, if I go to the update, okay. So inside this page, you need to like access that this dot about dot params dot name. And inside the profile, okay, this is the update page of one. So I will go to the profile and now I will pass this one. Right. Update. Yeah, you can see that this is the update page of Ajit. So what I'm trying to from this code, what I'm trying to like explain is that it's not necessary to use the router view to direct the user to some path. You can go programmatically, and but you'll have to use the this dot router and push method. This dot the push method of this dot router, and inside the this dot router, you will pass the object, similar object which you used to pass inside this inside the router link. So I guess I am done with the explanation of this router thing, the basic router thing. You can explore. I mean, there is a lot to learn in the view router. Now you can explore by yourself. So I'll go to the application which we are building earlier and try to use this view router. Okay, I will push this code to the GitHub so that you can access the code from there. So now what I will do, I'll go the term. I'll go to that application which we are building in the last session and try to use the router to the router there. So turn to to do app. So I have already created a branch named June 14 live session. I will commit it and you can access from the GitHub, the code from the GitHub. So what I will do, I will just create a page app.js. I already have. I just copy paste these codes. So from the index.html, what I will do, I will just copy this router CDN and paste it inside. Okay, you can paste it here. And then inside the app.js, I will just copy all these things and I'll modify this code. JS. Routes. For the path, I will use the main component. Okay, let's copy and paste all those. I mean, let me create in this session, let me create a form and then I will show how you can collect the data from the form and send it to the server to like save that data inside the database. But for that, I need to run the server. That would be a lot of work. You guys want to try this? I mean, you know what is, I mean, you know the router now. You can use the router. Inside the week 6. There it is. So what I will do, I will create a component inside the app.js. I will go and I'll remove all these things. And for the slash, I will have the task.js maybe. No, main component.js. Call it so. Does it matter? The name of the component matters. Main component is already here. And here I'll create a path user and call it create users, and the component I will be creating. So I have routes, and then I will pass the I have the routes. I pass the router. This one, and I will go to the index.html and I will use the router view. And then slash router view, and I will and here I will pass the two parameter, pass to slash, and I will write one more router view is equal to pass it user slash user, and I will close this. Okay, router link. Create user. I will now write router view. Let's run this. Router view, router link. Okay. X, the main component. App.js. Data component is the main component. I mean, let's create one component and then we will have to make a lot of changes. The main component. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's not change this code and try to fetch the data from the user from the task API in the application which we built before. This one, and we'll be working in this application. So what I will do, I can still access this API. So what I will do, I will create a form here and try to fetch the data. I will try to post the data with collected from the form in the database. So inside the component, what I will do, I will just create a task component, task.js, and inside that export default, and inside that I will just create a div, class div, slash div. Okay. Template. Inside this div, I will create a form. I will not create a full form. I will just create two fields. The first thing I will do, heading H4 maybe. I will write task here. And then what I will do, I will create two input type equal to text this, and write the placeholder as title, and similar kind of input. And the title will be description. And I will go to the app.js. Now, once we have created this, I have to like create the path. task. I'll only call it task. And then task. Component task. So we have created this route with the task, with the path/task and the name task, and the component will be task. And inside this component, what we have a form which has two input fields. Both are of text type. The placeholder for the first input field is title, and the second is description. And what I will do, I will create a button as the button. And inside this, I will create task. Let me access this. Running. So you can see that there are two fields. So what I will do, I will write the title here and description here, and whatever the user write the title and description. And once the user clicks on the create task, I will be sending a fetch request to the server, and I will like take those data and push it inside the database. So for that, what I will do, I will just create a data field. And I will call it form data. And it will have two fields.
So there must be return, no?
Yeah. Data and then return. Form data, one is title, and I will initialize it null. And same goes for the description. I will call it initialize with the null. And what I will do, I will bind these two data with this input fields. So whenever some user change this input field, the form data will change. So I will bind this the text input field with the title placeholder with this title and with this description. So I will be using B model. B model is equal to what I will be doing form data dot title and then B model form data dot description. So I have created two input fields, and then I have B model the input field with the placeholder title with the form data dot title and description with form data with the dot description. So if I will go here and let's check whether it's working. I'll write it hello text. Hello, this should appear inside the text box. You can see the hello here. But I will copy and paste it inside the you can see this task that is the data has been binded correctly. So I will initialize it with the null. So what I will be doing when the user will change this field, the form data dot title will be changed, and if the user will change this input field, the form data dot description will change. So I will collect these two data and send a post request to the server. Good idea. So right on click, I will trigger a method post data, and I will define that post data inside the method. Methods. Inside that method, I will write the data. That window, I'll have to write it within scratch. Okay, let's write it. So let's make this post data async function. Async function so that we could use the await keyword. Const await, and then I will use the fetch method, fetch API. The first thing you pass is the URL. So the URL to post the data should be /tasks only, maybe /tasks. I will let me remove this from here. Copy this. Here. Control B /API/tasks. Now I'll be sending the fetch request to this URL, and then after that I can pass an init object. So inside the init object, what we write what kind of request I want to send, and if we want to send the header, we also pass the header using that init method or init object. And if we want to pass some payload with the request, we also specify that payload inside this init object. So the first thing I will define here is not headers, method, and that will be the second thing is headers, and then inside the headers I will just write one header, content type. This content type header is used to give a message to the server that the content type of this request, I mean the payload of this request is a application/JSON. So what we are saying that we are sending a fetch request to this endpoint, to this URL, and the method will be post, and the content type of the payload will be application/JSON. And we also need to specify the body parameter which we use to specify the payload of the request. JSON.stringify. The stringify means I have for now I have this form data is just a JavaScript object. So I want to change it in the JSON string. So that's why we use stringify. Stringify is used to convert uh, the JavaScript object to a JSON string, and JSON.parse is used to convert the JSON string to a JavaScript object. So as we have already mentioned that the content type of this request will be of application/JSON, so we will be sending the JSON. So what I will write here dot form data. So whenever some user writes something inside these two text boxes, the value of this title and description will change, and when it will click on the post data, the current title and description will be, I mean, this object will be converted into a JSON string, and the user will, I mean, and we will be sending a post request to this URL with this payload, the form data. This is what we have done till now. So if, let's check. So if the response, if this request fails, so we can handle it inside the catch. And I'll just say network error log network error. If this request fails, log network error. And if this, I mean, this fetch request resolve, it will, the response will be stored inside this response variable. So I will check whether it was, and one, if the request fails, it will be handled by this catch method. So I don't want to run rest of my code if this fetch request fails. So I will check whether the post data, if there is something inside the post data. If yes, check if post data, if there is something inside the response. And if the response is okay. If response dot okay.
Sir, can we write this part using dot then?
Which one?
We have
This
seen
one.
this approach before. This one, this if response. We already seen this in previous one. This time, can we write dot then?
No, you don't need to write the dot then, because whatever the value this fetch request sends, it will be like stored inside the response. So you don't have to use then. You can access it directly. This fetch request send you a response object.
Okay, sir.
But the then you use when you don't have the data, you just only have the promise. If you have something inside the response, that means the promise has already been resolved. You have the data now.
This is why, because fetch without network error does not give any other error. So we are not using. Okay. Clear. Fine.
You should not say the network error. Whatever the reason, the request didn't reach to the server.
Yes,
but most of the cases, it's network error.
Yes, fine. Perfect. Thank you, sir.
So I just want to, if the response dot okay, I don't have anything to convert the response in. I mean, because the response will mostly be a status code, because we are just posting the data. So most of the cases it will not return the whole data. It can return the whole data, but I'm assuming that it is just responding with the 201 that the data has been created. Alert. I just alert. And what I will alert is dot status.
So this will give a code.
Yeah,
response status. And status text will give the string. No?
Else there is some error, but in that case I also want to alert this response.status. So I will just remove response.ok because I don't want to do anything if the response is okay. I just want to alert whatever the server is responding with. Alert response.status. Okay. So let me go here. Once I have this, what I will do, task 5. I just write this dot task. This is right. So it says 200. Okay, that means the data has been created. So how we can verify it? I will go to here and try to refresh. You can say that we have one more task item with the inside the ID 2 and the title task 5, and this is task 5 and the status false. That is, it has not. It's not completed yet. The user has to complete it, and this is the creation date. So in the last session, we discussed how to fetch the data. How we sent the get request, fetch the like delete request, and now we know how to send the post request. Now, if we want to send the put request, we just have to change this URL and just change the post. So let's say we have the data ID equal to 2, and with this, metadata. Whatever the data inside this task database, task table is, we are displaying here. So we know that we have a data with the ID 2, which has the title task 5. So what I will do, I'll just demonstrate how we can send the put request. I'll just put 2 here because you want to update some task, so it should have a ID. It already should have ID, because if the API doesn't know which task you want to update, it will create a new task. But ideally, if you want to update a task, update a resource, you should give an ID. So I will pass through here, and instead of post, I will just pass put here. Okay. And now what I will do, I'll just go there, this, and I will make it task 6. And description, this is task 6. Okay, task says 200. That is, the data has been updated. So what I expect this title to be task 6 and this description to be changed. So you can see that it says task 6 and this is a task 6. So you know how to send. You know how to operate the CRUD operations on the database using the API. I have sent all kinds of requests. The last session we sent the get request and delete request. In this session we have send the post request.
Are you going to take the delete task method also now?
No, delete I have already done.
Oh, okay, fine.
All you have
We
to
can
do,
refer that earlier session.
yeah, you can change this method to post, to delete, and then you don't need this header and this body. I mean, the API will delete the task with the ID too. So if you guys want to know how the router works and how you can like perform the CRUD operation on the database using the API, so you can merge these two concepts and like improve this to do that. Is there any question from the session?
Sir, will you be uploading these codes on Discourse?
Yeah, I upload it on the GitHub and then post the links on the Discourse.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
It's already uploaded. I will send a push request. Okay, I have already sent the push request. Yes, I have not sent. I mean, I have not pushed the code which I wrote in the end of the session, but most of the codes I have already pushed. Task. You can see I have like pushed most of the code. I send this link to you. So you can access it from here. Is there any question?
No doubt, sir.
Need to watch the session again.
Okay. Okay, I'll use this right now. Code has been posted. You can access the. I will also put this on the Discourse.
So only these three commands are there, no? Add
there are a lot of commands.
Okay, the minimum at least that we can use.
Yeah. So should I stop sharing now?
Sure, sir.
If you guys don't have any questions, so we can close the session then.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the session. Good night, sir.
Thank you for the session. Good night.
Thank you, sir.